What's up guys, Pop My Pigs for Life here, and today we're back with another episode of Conservation Carnival in Planet Zoo. As the Texas sun rises over the zoo, let's just take a moment to recap what we did last episode. So last episode we did an absolute ton of planning on the entire carnival area of the zoo. Admittedly I got a little bit too carried away with the planning, and we've pretty much planned out all the infrastructure that we're going to have for this last little bit of the zoo we need to work on. We did also add a couple of animals. We added in a brand new animal to Conservation Carnival, the spotted hyena. Looks like this one's taking a little dip, which understandable when it is, 100 Fahrenheit? Yeah, I totally understand that. We got these guys in here, and on top of that, we did also create a brand new habitat for the Fusas, right in here. These guys aren't, new to the zoo, but finally, they have a brand new habitat. So yeah, other than the Fusas and the hyenas, we pretty much added in a ton of shops. So we've got food and drink, we've got souvenir areas, plenty of seating areas, restrooms, a ton of other carnival stuff, like this very nice looking Ferris wheel, carnival games, yeah, all that good jazz. So, the plan for today's episode is all of these habitats over here, we're going to be adding in all of the animals in here. So, just a little recap. Right in here, we're going to have a little bit of an exotic petting zoo throughout these two enclosures. One is going to be for aardvarks, meerkats, Kirk's dik-dik, and African spurred tortoise. The other is going to be for all 4 species of lemurs we have in the game. Right in here is going to be our brand new hippo enclosure. Right in here is going to be the brand new enclosure for southern white rhinos, Nialas, Thompson's gazelles, springbok, and common warthogs. And then right in here we're going to have reticulated giraffes, common ostrich, Somali wild ass, dromedary camels, and addax. Whew, man, absolute mouthful. So obviously one thing I do have to do is I do have to add in a ton of staff facilities over here, so that way they can access these 2 enclosures. We're gonna have to do a giant shelter in here for, reticulated giraffes especially. And yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of what we are doing in this episode. So, yeah, where do I want to start? I don't know, it's tough. You know what I want to do? I want to start with the animals that we have already added in the zoo. So, I think what we're gonna do is let's start with the hippos. So therefore, we're gonna need to start by adding in the, the staff facilities right over here. So yeah, we've got quite a lot we need to do in this episode. So without any further ado, let's jump right into today's time-lapse. Okay guys, so kicking off today's time-lapse, like I mentioned, the first thing we have to do is add in the staff facilities, so that way we can eventually add in the hippos and the giraffes and all the other animals that are going in that big enclosure. I really like this setup we have here because all of the staff facilities can fit perfectly together, make this nice, neat little triangle. One thing that I'm also doing here is I am making another little staff parking lot. So the idea is that the staff can drive from the main zoo all the way to this area over here where they can work and take care of the animals. Right now we are working on the shelter for all of the animals that are going to be in this enclosure. I'm not gonna go through the effort of naming each and every species that's going in that enclosure because Yeah, it just takes up time. And we are also adding in a shelter for the other mixed African habitat we are going to have here, as well as for the hippos, which is going to be the first habitat that we end up working on. So to start, we obviously have to have a pretty sizable body of water for the hippos, and I decided to turn that into a little bit of a river going through the other two large African animal habitats that we have going on here. And then once the hippos are in their enclosure, we can start by working on the terrain, but not before adding a nice and comfortable concrete floor to the inside of their shelter. And so as we are working on the hippo habitat, one cool thing that I found out about hippos is that their closest living relatives are actually whales and dolphins. And scientists believe that hippos and whales and dolphins split from each other around 55 million years ago. On top of that, one other really interesting fact I found out about hippos is that despite their semi-aquatic lifestyle, hippos actually can't physically swim because their bodies are just so incredibly dense. So instead, hippos are able to get around underwater by using their legs to push themselves off of the bottom of the river, and essentially they are able to run on the bottom of the river. So one thing you'll definitely be able to see is a pattern in this video is that we are taking a lot of elements directly from some of the other enclosures in Conservation Carnival, and we are reusing them for some of these new enclosures that we will be building in this episode. For instance, as you can see, we are taking a ton of the foliage groups from the African exhibit in the drive-through safari, so that way we can use them for the hippos, and we are going to be doing the exact same thing for the next enclosure we work on, which will be for the common warthogs, springbok, Thompson's gazelles, southern white rhinos, and nyalas. Like I said, in this video, I want to prioritize the animals that have already been added to the zoo, so that way we can give them a more permanent enclosure. So now all we have to do is just add in some of the enrichment for the hippos, and then we can move on to this next enclosure. And so as we are adding in all of the enrichment for the hippos, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my plans for this summer. So now that I'm a college student, I have got a much longer summer vacation. I've been off for the past month, and I've also got all of June, all of July, and most of August. And especially now that we're going to be getting the Planet Zoo 2 trailer any day now, I am feeling more motivated than ever to do some stuff in Planet Zoo. Obviously, we're going to finish up Conservation Carnival. Then I want to make Poseidon Aquarium 2.0. I did tease that a little over a year ago, and I definitely want to do that. Of course, the anniversary of the channel is coming up, and I've got one or two more series that I want to do in Planet Zoo before we inevitably move on to Planet Zoo 2. So as for my summer schedule, I'm not going to promise a regimented schedule where I upload, every week or so. I'm just going to upload when I can. When I have time to work on a video, I will. When I have time to edit, I will. And when I have time to upload a video, I will. Hopefully that will be most of the summer. I do have a couple things that I want to get done outside of YouTube over the summer, and on top of that, my family and I do plan on going away for a week, so that's why I don't want to promise a regimented upload schedule. However, with my motivation being at an all-time high, I have no doubts that this summer will be filled with so many new videos for you guys. So for this enclosure, essentially, at first we were doing all of the same things that we did for the hippo enclosure. However, where things start to get different is with this little bridge that we're making. Essentially, the southern white rhinos are unable to swim, so because of that, they have no way of getting to the hard shelter. So as a result, we did have to make a little bit of a bridge. One thing that you will see that we have to do later is we have to make the bridge a little bit wider because the southern white rhinos are just so chunky that they weren't even able to fit over this seemingly narrow bridge. So because of that, you'll see in a little bit that we have to make it a little bit wider so that way it can accommodate such big animals that are the southern white rhinos. I am a huge nerd when it comes to animal ecology and learning about which animals coexist in the same environment as each other. And some of these animals actually don't coexist with each other in the same ecoregion of Africa. So for instance, the Thomson's gazelles can be found exclusively in the Masai Mara region of Kenya and Tanzania, whereas some of the other animals, like the springbok and the nyala, can be found in much southern areas of Africa, such as South Africa. If we even take a look at the springbok and nyala, each of those animals live on completely different sides of South Africa, with the springbok inhabiting the more drier western side of South Africa, and the nyala living in the more lusher eastern side of South Africa. However, for some species, such as the common warthog and the southern white rhino, they can actually be found across multiple ecoregions of Africa. So that's something that I'm really interested in. So now you can see that we are working on the exotic petting zoo area. So to start here, we are planning out exactly where the path is going to go, and then we are going to be working immediately on the enclosure for the aardvarks, meerkats, Kirk's-Dik-Dik, and African spurred tortoise. And so one cool thing I found out about the African spurred tortoise is that, first of all, they are the same exact thing as the sulcata tortoise. I've heard of sulcata tortoises before, mostly from the Urban Rescue Ranch, who has Master Oogway, the sulcata tortoise. Fun fact, I was actually the one who suggested he name his tortoise Master Oogway. But anyways, so the African spurred tortoise, or like I said, the sulcata tortoise, is the third largest species of tortoise in the world. I'm assuming right behind the Galapagos tortoise and the Aldabra giant tortoise. And they are the largest species of tortoise that can be found on a mainland continent. On top of that, sulcata tortoises are excellent burrowers, and some have been able to dig as far deep as 10 feet underground. So that is 3 meters of African spurred tortoise burrow, which is crazy to think about. And one other cool thing is that they are not typical drinkers, but instead they hydrate themselves by soaking in water, which is a pretty cool adaptation, especially where they live in such a dry area of Africa. As for the Kirk's-Dik-Dik, these guys are named after the unique calls that they make when they are trying to warn each other of a nearby predator. One other cool thing about the Kirk's-Dik-Dik is that they're one of the few grazing hoofed mammals that are actually monogamous. With most hoofed mammals, they are often found in large herds, especially with antelope. But the Kirk's-Dik-Dik and Dik-Dik in general, they are known for being monogamously paired with each other. And speaking of Dik-Diks, there are actually 4 unique species of Dik-Diks that are found across Africa. There's the Kirk's-Dik-Dik, which we have in the game. There is the Gunther's Dik-Dik, the Salt Dik-Dik, and the Silver Dik-Dik. So now, for the habitat itself, what you can see I'm doing is I decided to add in a ton of rock piles, and around these rock piles is where we are adding designated burrows for the African spurred tortoise, the aardvarks, and the meerkats. And of course, for the Kirk's-Dik-Dik, I did have to add in some regular shelters. But the African spurred tortoise burrows are more near the habitat gate. The aardvarks have their own separate burrow, and the meerkats have a ton of small burrows that are at the far end of the habitat. So once we finish up adding in all of the foliage, we are ready to move on to the lemur habitat. So to start, obviously, we have to add in the terrain paint. And I will admit, I did have a little bit of a struggle with adding in foliage, which you'll be able to see in a bit. However, one thing that I really like that I did with this habitat is I decided to add in the natural brachiation blueprint that we have in the game. Not only does that add in some foliage, but it also is able to provide the lemurs with some climbable areas as well. So I'm pretty sure I added 2 or 3 of these natural brachiation structures in this habitat, and I also added in some of these smaller tropical planters that I downloaded from the Steam Workshop too. So those combined with, like I said, the natural brachiation structures, I feel very happy with how this all turned out. For the hard shelter, as you can see, we are using one of the chicken coops that we got in the Barnyard Animal Pack. So lemurs are a very interesting family of primates. Obviously, they're not monkeys, and obviously they are endemic to Madagascar, meaning they can only be found on the island of Madagascar. So the ancestors of lemurs are believed to have originated over 70 million years ago on the continent of Africa, and scientists believe that a couple of populations of these ancestors would have rafted to Madagascar from Africa via rafts of debris that were set adrift via many different storms. And they believe that this happened 65 million years ago, so about 1 million years after the non-avian dinosaurs went extinct. And because this population of lemurs was isolated from the rest of the world, they were able to evolve into a completely different family of primates, being the lemurs, than the primates that were found on the mainland continents, which eventually evolved into monkeys, apes, and the same thing would have happened with the debris rafts, which is how monkeys ended up in South America. So now, going back to the lemurs, there is over 100 different species of lemurs found across Madagascar, and all of them have very different niches. For instance, there are golden bamboo lemurs that eat bamboo, there are mouse lemurs, eyes, and just an absolute ton of different species. And one cool thing about one of the species, the shifaka, is that they're so adapted to being able to leap from tree to tree that their legs are way too long for them to walk normally on the ground. So because of that, if they want to get around on the ground, they have to shuffle. And that's where you see that iconic lemur shuffling. So now we are working on the final mixed habitat and the final habitat of the video. And that is the habitat for all the animals that have not yet shown up in Conservation Carnival. Well, minus the ostriches. Yeah, I was torn between whether or not I wanted the ostriches in the drive-thru safari or in this enclosure with the camels, addax, Somali wild ass, and reticulated giraffes. So in the end, I just decided to have some ostriches in the drive-thru safari and some in this enclosure. As you can see, we're just really quickly rerouting the river so that way it can create a body of water inside what's going to be the African elephant and hamadryas baboon enclosure. I did have to change the fence because the barrier for the elephant and hamadryas baboon enclosure was electrified, so, you know, we had to make things a little bit more realistic and make it not electrified, otherwise the entire water source would just be electrocuted and not good. So now for the terrain, as you can see, we have got to get the absolute perfect balance for all of the animals, because you've got some animals that like the desert and some that like more of a grassland type of area. So for some animals, the minimum sand requirement is like 20%, whereas for the others, the maximum requirement is 20%. So we have to get that perfect balance for the terrain. Here you can see that I'm just doing a little bit of a foliage palette almost. So figuring out what plants I want to use in the habitat. A lot of the doum palms, a lot of the drin grass, and a couple other trees. I believe they're called like quiver trees or something. So yeah, so plants that are in both the grassland and the desert. So yeah, here you can see it's definitely a lot more scrubby than the lush sort of grasslands that we've been going for in most of the African safari enclosures that I've done. And honestly, I actually quite like how it's a little bit on the scrubbier end here in this enclosure. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So then after that, all we really have to do is add in all of the enrichment. I think I also added in some rock piles here and there. And then we're pretty much done with this habitat. And with that, we will also be concluding today's time-lapse. If you guys enjoyed watching today's time-lapse, then please consider leaving a like, commenting down below, and subscribing to the channel to see some more videos just like this one. This year, we're trying to reach 200 subscribers before the end of 2026, and by doing all of that, you will be seriously helping us reach that goal. And like I say each and every video, by simply taking the time out of your day to sit down and watch this video all the way through is already showing this channel a significant amount of support. So as always, thank you all so much for watching today's video. Alrighty guys, so here is everything that we've got done in today's video. Man, I don't even know where to start. You know what, let's start over here. I want to take a look at this entire area from a guest perspective. So you go in, you've got the aardvark right over here. You've got one of our African spurred tortoises, two of them actually. Wow. As you can see, the game is so laggy right now, which means that, yeah, it's almost time to, give this zoo a rest. Oh, I think this is the big male African spurred tortoise. We've got a ton of little baby meerkats. Oh, we got a whole family. So this is the alpha female, and these are all the little babies. And this looks like it's the alpha male. Yeah, alpha male, alpha female, and they're what, like 5 babies? Aw, they're kind of cute. And then I want to see if we can find the Kirk's Dik-Dik. So there's 2 paths in this enclosure. 2 entrances. Ah, there's the Kirk's Dik-Dik. At least one of them. This one... Is this the female? It is. And she's already expecting babies. That's crazy. So anyways, that's this enclosure. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's on the smaller end, sure, but you know, it's still got tons of detail with the rocks, the plants, the burrows, the enrichment. And then right in here, we've got the lemur enclosure. Huge mixed enclosure full of lemurs. I have to say, this natural brachiation blueprint, this might be one of my favorite blueprints. I need to pause this for now. Yeah, no, this might be honestly one of my favorite blueprints in the game. Because, yeah, not only does it provide some climbing for the lemurs, but it also is perfect to add in some foliage. So we've got a little area over here. Go over here. We've got all of these hard shelters. Decided to add a little bit more of a artificial climbing frame. Looks like we've got the cockerel shifaka. We've got Zaboomafoo. I had to make that reference. Honestly, I was much more of a Wildcrats kid, but I vaguely remember watching Zaboomafoo when I was like 3 or 4. We've got one of the red ruffed lemurs over here. I could have sworn over here we had one of the ring-tailed lemurs. I don't know. Let's see. Oh yeah, all the lemurs are hanging out over here. We've got ring-tailed lemurs. And we've got the black and white ruffed lemurs. One other cool thing about the ring-tailed lemurs specifically is that, like, when it's sunny out, when it's, like, the peak, when it's, like, in the morning, they'll, like, sun themselves in, like, this lotus position. It's pretty cool. I remember seeing that in a, Wildcrats episode. But yeah, so we've got tons of lemurs over here. Red ruffed lemurs, cockerel shifaka, black and white ruffed lemurs. Over here you can look into the Fusa enclosure. We've got another 2 natural brachiation structures. We've got one here, and then we've got one right here that you can walk under, and then it just leads right back. Yeah, no, overall, like I said in the time-lapse, when I was first working on adding the foliage in this enclosure, I had a very hard time getting it to look good, but I feel like it looks excellent now with these brachiation structures. So yeah, we'll be able to get an even better look at this on the tour, but now let's take a look at this giant monorail safari area. We've got the new and improved hippo enclosure. It's a lot more spacious than their previous enclosure. There was not enough land requirements. Let's take a look. Yeah, there is plenty of room for the hippos. I will admit, I did buy way too many hippos. But yeah, as they grow up, we'll be able to rehome, release some of them. We've got giant mixed habitat over here. We've got southern white rhinos and warthogs over here. We've got springbok and Thompson's gazelles. These are more springbok, I believe. We've got the Nyalas over here. Yeah, it looks like a bunch of them are hanging out over here. So yeah, these are all animals that we had in the zoo, but now this is their permanent enclosure we've got. So then last but certainly not least, we have our brand new enclosure for some brand new animals. Yeah, like I said, I love how this is much more of a scrubland as opposed to a grassland. But yeah, no, we've got so many animals over here. We've got ostriches, looks like they've just gotten some food. We've got the absolutely beautiful looking attics over here. We've got dromedary camels over here. And we've got the Somali wild ass. These guys are absolutely beautiful animals. I'm sad that I don't use them nearly as much in Planet Zoo. Yeah, no, absolutely stunning. One more look at the attics. Even the attics, like, I feel like these are such cool, underrated antelope. Dromedaries. I forget, do we have any dromedary, like, different variants of dromedary camel? Doesn't look like it. In fact, we only have 3 dromedaries. I might check the market, see if there's any more I can find. And of course, we've got the reticulated giraffe. Absolutely magnificent creature. And I believe in here we've got an absolute ton of reticulated giraffes. Is this the big male? This is the big male. Eaten from his feeder. Absolutely stunning. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with how this entire area is shaping up. And I can't believe that we just made so much progress in today's video. So now, with all that being said, there is really only one last thing we have to do for Conservation Carnival, and that is the Humane Circus area. So that's going to be what we do next episode. So this, I believe, is going to be for the West African lions. Actually, no, this is going to be for West African lions. This is going to be for Bengal tigers. Whichever enclosure is larger will be for West African lions. And then this will be for Hamadryas baboon and African elephants. I do have to add in a gate to this habitat because I want to take this shelter, put it here. One other thing is I'm not really a huge fan of this back wall being brick. So what I might do is I might see if I can find some cool, like, rock features, like maybe something that looks a little bit more like a plateau on the Steam Workshop. If not, then I can just use the African rock group that I've just been using all along. So yeah, with that being said, that is gonna wrap up today's video. Really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If so, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to see some more Planet Zoo and Jurassic World Evolution 3 content. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.